It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles.
Let's roll. It is Sports by the Book here at the South Point Studio. I'm Jeff Parles. Happy to be with you today, as always, alongside pair of Hall of Famers, Vinny Magliulo, Chris Andrews, Sportsbook Director, of course, Vinny, as we know, gone gaming, been in the business for a very long time. Same with Chris, the Sportsbook Director here at the South Point. Gentlemen, it's a football Friday. Nothing wrong with that.
Love it. Love it.
Great.
We got 4 games tonight.
4 games tonight.
Yeah.
A lot of action on those 4 games.
Oh, man. We've been busy. Yeah.
Well, Chris, just after last night, Niners win, cover, game goes under against the Giants. Just how did that go for you guys?
Well, the under helped us. We actually had some really big bets on the dog, but the public just kind of overpowered them. We were all the way down as low as 9.5 on the game because guys, listen, the one guy bet me 20 dimes plus a 10, and he's usually a big line mover. So I followed him and went to 9.5. Like I said, the public wound up overpowering that, but the total staying under that helped. The other game that really hurt us was the Georgia State game. It's like the whole world knew Georgia State was the right side. I had the other side. I want to say I had them about a 6-point favorite. We wound up closing it, 3.5, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole world just poured in on the dog. And the whole world was right. It looks like I was wrong, but we never really had a prayer in that one.
The whole world with the right side, without a shadow of a doubt.
Pretty much, yeah.
Never in doubt.
Never in doubt, for sure. Vinny, going to tonight, we have a quartet of games. We'll roll through them pretty quickly because Chris, as we discussed on Monday, as good of a college slate as we can remember, especially for the next to last weekend in September. 6 ranked games, one that is not ranked, 2 ranked teams, but Clemson and Florida State sure is heck an important game in the ACC. But Vinny, tonight, let's start West Lafayette first. Purdue hosting Wisconsin, conference opener for both squads. Right now, Vinny, 6 here on Wisconsin.
Whiskey, that's the opener, Jeff. Did go down to 5.5 earlier this week. Total 54, which is, again, it hasn't been a whole lot of movement on the total, but gets the evening going at 4 o'clock Pacific tonight.
Then the other early game, half hour after that, Virginia, West Virginia in action tomorrow against Texas Tech. Virginia hosting NC State. Vinny, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Right now, it's 8, which is actually the market high on NC State. This didn't move much at all until this morning.
Yeah, and again, one of the things we were talking about yesterday was that this game, outside, and we'll get to the last game, but these games here, this is where you're going to see the majority of the handle, right, for these games, and certainly this is one of them. So down to 8 here. We did open this one 9.5, but you know what? Look, 48.5. Good action. It's a nice slate. We've got some Big Ten. We've got some ACC and some Mountain West action that we're going to get to on these next 2, which are both 7:30 Pacific starts.
And both of them right now are 6.5-point lines with the road teams favored in both. Chris, you guys have been taking.
Well, let me correct you. We just went to 6. I just got a flash on my computer.
Yep,
just went to 6 on Boise. Boise.
Okay, Boise back to 6.
Yeah.
Against San Diego State. And Chris, I just want to bring up the other game first because we were talking before the show. It's been one-way traffic on the Falcons.
That's another game. I'm not sure. Well, I guess we'll find out. I was wrong about Georgia State last night. But we opened this game 3.5. I really thought that was a good number. I think I think San Jose State has played some tough teams and showed up okay. Air Force, listen, if they get that running game going, it's very hard to stop. But all the money has been on Air Force. This has been a huge mover. We opened at 3.5. We're up to 6.5. And, I can tell I've seen some 6s now pop up, but I can tell you in my store, there's been no stopping them yet. It's all been all Air Force. So I hope somebody comes back the other way. I don't want to go in too lopsided, but if I need San Jose tonight for the dough, I'm not too upset with that.
Great point by Chris, too. Pay attention to when you're handicapping games out there on both sides of the counter. What's the competition been for these teams? San Jose State has had a much more difficult schedule so far and played pretty well during those.
They showed up against USC,
sure.
And they're a representative team, and this is a conference game. It's you got another road favorite here, and I'm always a little skeptical of road favorites in conference. San Jose's seen this offense how many years in a row? I don't know.
No strangers.
So I don't know. I mean, I like I said, the market is telling you the Air Force is the right side, but I'm not so sure.
Vinny, you and I talked about this yesterday, where you look at San Jose's schedule. Yeah, they ended up losing by 4 touchdowns to USC, but that was a close game at half.
They hung in there, I thought. Yeah,
they covered the number pretty easily in the end, even though it was a little sweaty.
Yeah,
at San Jose State. Oregon State beat them up pretty good, but Oregon State has been proven pretty
Very
darn good football.
You got it.
Last week, in a pretty fun mid-major matchup, Toledo and San Jose State went down to the wire. The Rockets only won that game by 4, and the Spartans got the money.
Toledo is a good team. They've been a good team year in and year out with very, very few exceptions. You know, we don't hear too much of them on the West Coast, and they're not like they're challenging for a national championship. But within their conference, they've been certainly one of the better teams for really the last couple decades. You know, so that was not a bad performance at all by San Jose.
You get San Jose State who's willing to step out and go up against big teams, right? Power 5 schools. And again, let's remember this Pac-12 is better than we had anticipated.
Exactly.
Chris. I mean, I got them rated number 3. You know, we rate teams, but we also rate conferences. Pac-12 is certainly, SEC is the top conference, particularly when you consider the west side of the conference, the Western Division. Big Ten, same thing, based on the east side. But the Pac-12 is in the 3rd spot comfortably. I've got them slightly ahead of the Big 12.
I'd have to look at my numbers. I'm not sure they're not number 1, to tell you the truth. I think they're. I mean, we got a game we're going to talk about a little bit later. Middle of the conference, Wash State, Oregon State. That's a big game.
Nice one.
And those two teams are good teams.
Those are both very good teams that came up in Corvallis. I kind of with you, Chris. I just eyeballing it from my perspective. The SEC feels way down in comparison to what it's been over the last decade. The Big Ten is 3 great teams, and then after that, it falls off pretty hard after Penn State. Top to bottom, the Pac-12 to me is the best conference.
Yeah, like we just said, middle of the road Pac-12 teams are pretty darn good teams.
How many Pac-12 teams are you going to have as a favorite against Georgia?
Well, no,
zero.
No one's favored against Georgia.
Zero, yeah.
Just no one's favored against Georgia. And
remember,
look,
based on the Western half.
No, and look, I mean, Texas, who right now
I didn't get to my list. Go ahead.
It's a legitimate top 5 team 2 weeks ago, and obviously we have data points now, but we're touchdown plus underdog at Alabama.
Soon to be.
The power rating, the SEC still respected, as you said.
Soon to be
SEC members themselves. All right, let's get into these games on Saturday. Chris, let's just start with this game where you guys took a big bet here. UAB. UAB it's Trent Dilfer, by the way, as we know, coaching UAB now. Going between the hedges to take on Georgia. Open 42, now 41, Chris.
Yeah, one guy bet me 10 dimes plus the 42. I mean, a respected guy. We're down to 41. By the way, I wrote an article, and I had my own website. This is 12 years ago. And I went back 4 or 5 years, and I haven't followed it that closely since then, except anecdotally. But the smaller, the non-Power 5 schools playing against an SEC team cover the number an inordinate amount of times. And I think, well, first of all, you're always getting a big number.
Right.
And you're talking about kids, especially early in the year before injuries have decimated some of these teams, so they can still compete. What's a kid's mindset? Oh, these Georgia guys didn't want me, neither did Alabama or Mississippi State or even Vanderbilt. We're going to go in and show them. So you're going to get the best these teams have to offer. And like I said, injuries have not played a real big part yet. And that's usually when these teams play. So the underdogs in these games are usually very – and listen, Jeff, you're getting 6 touchdowns. You know, it's not a pick'em game, you know. I mean, you got a lot of leeway here.
Again, down to 41. UAB is not shown out pretty well so far this year, to say the least.
Yeah.
Losing by 20 last week to the Cajuns, losing by 2 touchdowns to Georgia Southern. They did beat NCA&T by 29 points. But
is Kirby Smart going to step on the gas in the fourth quarter or not? Probably. I don't know.
He should have the 2s and 3s in.
This is the other thing too, Chris, where the SEC team in these matchups is invested for about 2.5 quarters. And usually, like first half, like we saw this earlier in the year where Georgia played a quarter. Played that whole second quarter was 0-0 earlier in the year. And they were up 35-0 at halftime and then basically took the foot off the gas pedal in the second. So that's one of those where if you like Georgia, I'd much rather, you have to lay a bigger number than you normally have to in a first half scenario. But I'd rather lay a first half than a full game with Georgia because, like Vinny, you just said, 2s and 3s by the end of the game.
Sure. I mean, again, so 27 and a half.
Yeah.
That interests you? Yeah.
I'd rather have that than the 41. Personally.
Yeah, I mean, we're at 26 and a half. So, I mean,
I'd much rather 26 and a half.
Well, 27, 28. I mean, those are big numbers in a first half bet.
If you're so inclined, because you're going to get the starters, at least for the first half.
And also, too, Georgia did not play well last week. Really.
They did not. No.
Really lackadaisical for the first half. You'd imagine Kirby would have them ready after losing 14-3 in the first half to South Carolina last week.
Yeah.
Then, of course, 21-0.
Well, you got to remember, these are young kids, and they're reading the accolades, and, I mean, I'm sure they're all big men on campus and that sort of thing, and they are just kids, but that's got to go to your head at some point. But I think you're right. Kirby's smart. He's going to be on them this week on the starters for sure. And if you are looking to play Georgia, like I said, 26 and a half.
It's a big number.
You're under, the 27 and 28. I mean, I think that's the way to go if you want to bet Georgia.
Let's go to Death Valley. Clemson, Florida State. Clemson, of course, with a loss in week 1 to Duke. Florida State, fortunate to win last week against Boston College.
Sure.
Chris, this game has bounced around a little bit, but it is right at the opening number that you had, which is Florida State 2 as we speak right now.
Yeah, and I see 1.5s out there. I had one guy come in and I like Florida State in this game, and I've been touting Florida State the whole offseason. So when I opened the game 2, this guy come in. I'm not sure he's a line mover or whatever, but he took me +2 and +1.5, like right out of the gate. Pretty sizable bets. So we were down to 1 at one point. Now it's gone back up. We're up to 2. I see a lot on 1.5s. I have a feeling we might get back there at some point. We've got a lot of action on this game, and this is going to be another good one to start. This is the one that's going to start off our day, I'd say.
Good game, 9:00 start, and
excellent game,
right, to get things rolling on tomorrow morning.
Well, a lot of the big games are slotted in that second slot tomorrow. This is the premium game at the 9 a.m. window out here on the West Coast. Florida State's more talented. Just a matter of getting past the mental aspect of finally beating Clemson for me with Florida State.
Yeah, I mean, I think last week that you have a look ahead situation. Yes. You're looking ahead to Clemson, and we still say it's still Boston College only has been in this league for about 20 some years. I still don't think of them all the time as an ACC team. But you have these Southern kids, Florida kids going up to Boston. There's a little bit of a weather, not terrible, but a little bit of weather situation. Was not a great spot for Florida State. I did lower them maybe about a point in my power ratings. I think you had to pay attention at least a little bit. But, I mean, I kind of hate to be with the public, but I think the public is right on this one. The public's on Florida State.
And the other thing, too, Jordan Travis did get banged up in that game against Boston College. So that is something to monitor going into this weekend against Clemson.
No doubt about it. We're going to find a lot more about Florida State. This is a big test for them. I mean, ever since Clemson went to their playoffs in consecutive years, a few years back. But another team really like Alabama. If there's a common factor, it's the quarterback play, right? And they've not had that conference dominating quarterback. This is going to be and I think Florida State knows this. I mean, Clemson obviously knows it. Dabo Swinney's going to have them prepared, and they're right to right to be considered at home. But I will tell you now, this could be a statement game for Florida State tomorrow.
Florida State goes there, wins comfortably. Playoffs or bust for Florida State. Forget playoffs, national championship or bust for the Seminoles. All right, let's go to Lawrence, Kansas next. 3-4-3, 3-4-4 in your betting rotation. Kansas, BYU. Chris, this is another one that has bounced all over the place over the last few days, but it's right back on that opening number right now. Kansas laying 9.5 against BYU. Kansas struggling in Reno last week. BYU with a really nice win in Fayetteville against Arkansas.
Yeah, I had a lot of my Reno friends. Everybody knows I spent about 30 years up there. They couldn't get enough of Kansas. They were betting Kansas. This is going to be a cakewalk. And my one buddy, I said, man, you're too emotionally invested. You've seen Nevada be horrible this year, but this is still a tough game. And again, Kansas, what are they doing playing Nevada? And, now here they are back home. And this is now a conference game, So I don't know. I really kind of like the lower number a little bit. I've been pretty high on Kansas, but I think this is a big number. I'm trying to look at. I think I made this game 8. I did. I made it 8. We touched 8, but we're back up. So great action on this game, but we'll see what happens.
Kansas football.
I know Kansas football.
I know you're dying to say it.
No, I mean, look, Vinny, before the year, I took a piece of Kansas to win the conference at a big bloated number because of the talent of Jalen Daniels. 3-0, unimpressive last week, but hey, a win's a win.
Well, you got to love the coach.
And
Lance Leipold.
Great job.
The guy.
Wins at every level.
I was, again, when I had my website a long time ago when he first took the Buffalo job.
Yep.
I said, if he does at Buffalo what he did at Whitewater, you could forget Nick Saban being the greatest coach of all time. It'll be this guy. Now, of course, he hasn't been quite up to that level, but he's turned around a moribund program, which was as bad as any Power 5 team in the country. And all of a sudden, they're legitimate. They're a good team.
A legitimate bowl team, for sure.
Yeah.
And a team that you would anticipate will finally go over 500 for the first time since Mark Mangino was there.
Yeah.
Back in the day at KU. All right, let's get this one. It's the final game without Harbaugh for Michigan. Going through as many interim coaches as you like there, Vinny.
What do you have are you doing the first or second half tomorrow? Are you coaching? Which half are you coaching tomorrow?
Not even going to allow me within 100 miles of the big house there.
Well, you wouldn't want to go against Rutgers anyway.
I can't go against my home state. Rutgers is a 24-point dog, Chris, 43.5. This is interesting because Michigan is kind of just coasted along through these non-con.
They haven't covered yet.
Haven't really been impressive. And yes, it's a conference game, but it's Rutgers.
Yeah. Well, if I had trouble thinking of BC in the ACC, I mean, Rutgers a Big Ten squad. I don't know, but I think Schiano has this team playing well. That he's
a good coach.
I think this number. Listen, my numbers come to 22 on this game. You don't go running out with your whole bankroll and take plus 24 because it's 2 points off. That's not the way it works. But I think this team, I kind of like Rutgers in this game. I think, once again, Michigan, until they show me something, and I do think they're legitimately the second best team in the country, but they just haven't shown me that yet. So I think Rutgers very live dog. Not to win the game, but I like a gun to my head. I would take Rutgers plus a 24.
Tough to pass up.
Keep it close, and they could do it.
Yeah,
the way that Schiano coaches that team. They had a nice win over Virginia Tech a week ago. Granted, Vodtech is a mess right now.
Horrible.
Well, no longer the age of Beamer there in Blacksburg. All right, Chris, want to keep it going with teams and conferences that don't make any sense still. Big 12 debut for Cincinnati. Hosting Oklahoma. 14 flat right now on this one, 57. This is an interesting one because Oklahoma just steamrolled through non-conference, destroyed everyone, beat Tulsa by a ton last week, struggled but won and covered against SMU, and then week 1, Butch Jones was crying on the sidelines for Arkansas State. Cincinnati's coming off a really bad loss last week to Miami of Ohio in their home building. But this is, you were saying before the show, this has been a good two-way action game.
Oh, great. Well, I got minus 14, and I only wrote down what I consider the wise guy plays for limits. Minus 14, plus 14.5. So good two-way action on this one. The number obviously looks pretty good, but Vinny knows it's my joke I make every summer. It's my annual right of summer to overrate Oklahoma. I didn't overrate them this year. I actually underrated them this year because I was tired of doing it for the last 20 years. But this year, I think that, listen, I mean, it's non-conference. Let's not get carried away. They ran up some scores against some inferior the Butch Jones thing. That was kind of funny. But I think this team is legit, but I think is a very good number, 14.5. And again, the wise guys feel the same way.
Good action, as Chris indicated, too. And I think last week, a classic look-ahead spot or situation by Cincinnati.
They should have beaten that team. They were the better team. Again, but not that day, but they are on paper the better team.
Look-aheads are more of a factor in college than they are in pros.
Well, that was one of those combo ones, too, for Cincinnati. Because I know Pitt may not just – they just might not be a good team, as we saw last week in Morgantown. But Cincinnati was a reasonably sized underdog the week before. They went on the road, won at Pitt. Have Oklahoma the next week. That's kind of your combo letdown and look-ahead spot for Cincinnati.
The old sandwich game they used to call them. Yeah.
It's not what you're looking for there, but a bad loss nonetheless for the Bearcats a week ago. All right. I'm only bringing this up because the total's astronomically low, and I don't think we're closing there either, Chris. 36 on Oklahoma State and Iowa State. Both of these teams with bad out-of-conference losses a week ago. A bad result for you guys a week ago as well in the Iowa State game with Ohio winning outright. Oklahoma State blown out by South Alabama. Chris, when you're dealing with a total this low, 37 to 36.5 down to 36, just how do you handle a game like this when it's, hey, 2 defensive touchdowns, all of a sudden it's an accidental over at 36?
Well, that's, again, when I always talk about power ratings, I said, it just gives you a place to start. My power rating, my pure power rating, came to Oak State 4.
Okay.
But I'm thinking, do you want to lay 4 with a total of 36? No. I'm not so sure I want to do that. Even 3.5 to me looks like it's take or pass. But as I said, I joke about overrating Oklahoma. I overrated Oklahoma State instead. They're correspondent, I guess. But they've been very disappointing to me this year. But so is Iowa State. I thought Iowa State would be a lot better. So they've both been disappointing. Neither one of them could put many points on the board. Interesting total, 36. We haven't seen that since the 80s, maybe even the 70s.
Lord.
I mean, 1970s. I'm talking about. That's a really low total.
And do a double take.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you the truth, though. They might have to play a doubleheader to get up to 36.
I tend to agree with that, actually. Where Oklahoma State has 3 quarterbacks, and all of them are bad. Anthony Beck's kid, Rocco Beck, I think will end up being good, but he's just not there yet as a true freshman. And again, it's ridiculously low, but I definitely don't want the over. I can tell you that.
We often look at the transfer portal and how it's helped a lot of programs. There's a couple of programs here that it has not helped.
No, it has definitely not helped Iowa State.
I mean, it's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
With both, so that's something to take into consideration too. Not only look at the additions from the transfer portal, but look at these subtractions.
Yeah. One more item. Coach Campbell from Iowa State has a terrible record in close games.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to even out over time, or sometimes maybe the guy just isn't that good of a coach. I thought he was. I really did. I had high hopes. I always root for listen, in the bookmaking business, you usually need the dogs.
Right.
So I usually need Iowa State, over the years. So I wanted him to be successful. I wanted this program to be successful. Certainly looked like it was going to go that way. And now the last couple of years, not so sure.
It's one of those guys who was linked to all these gigantic jobs and just stayed names too long. I mean, just look at what's going on in the NFL.
It's probably
Mrs. Campbell saying the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, look, Brock Purdy was the last pick in the NFL draft and went backwards every year at Iowa State. Look at what he's doing with the Niners.
That's exactly true.
Kind of a telltale sign of what Matt Campbell is. Nice coach, but nothing spectacular, which honestly makes him the perfect coach for Iowa State. In all honesty. Let's get 2 more here before I think we'll have a Jimmy sighting in a little bit, guys. Vinny, UCLA Utah is a game here where both the teams are ranked, both the teams are good. And it's kind of a forgotten game this week in the Pac-12 because Coach Prime is going on the road to Eugene, which we'll get to in a minute. UCLA is a 4-point dog in Salt Lake here with a total of 52, and what is a really good matchup there at Rice-Eccles.
Well, you got a game here. It looks like Rising is going to play, right? He's going to probably make his
looks like he's going to make his
debut for the season. Cam Rising, quarterback for Utah, which is great for the Utes, right? Game open 5. They bet it up, and I think again when these games come out on Monday here at South Point, it's typically more professional play.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not your average fan or better. So they laid the 5, they laid 5, and it got as high as 6, but now it's come down, and we're sitting at 4. So you look at it; it's overall 2-way. I have to believe that if pros if they liked it at 5, they've got to like it at 4 at some point, right, Chris? With Rising coming back, so I think there'll be 2-way action on this game simply because of the Rising factor.
Oh, we've had 2-way action so far.
Yeah.
We are spread out all over the place on this game. Did we hit 6.5 ever in this game, Vinny?
I didn't see it. No, I saw 6.
I think 6.
I don't think we went to 6.5.
I was close to going to 6.5, but I didn't go. But I mean, we've been all over the place. But I got to tell you, one man's humble opinion, because I love Utah. I think Utah's a really good team, well coached. They've really recruited well. I think if Rising's playing, I think this number's a little cheap.
Yeah.
And this is and I told you I did a lot of work in the offseason on home field advantage. And there's a big difference between Utah at home and Utah on the road. And at home, they are really, really good. And like I said, if Rising's playing, I think this number's a little bit cheap. Right now, I am at 4, but I see a lot of 3.5 in the market, and I'm going to try to stay ahead of it a little bit because I think, like I said, the word is he's healthy. If he is, I think that's a low number.
I agree. I think 4, even 4.5 with a healthy Rising is still a good price on Utah. Like you said, most of the market 3.5. You guys, the lone 4 right now, sitting in town. All right, Coach Prime, you hear from guys? Hear from him a little bit?
It's pretty good.
3-0 Colorado at undefeated Oregon. Ducks are 3 touchdowns, Chris.
Yeah.
Total 70.5. We know Hunter's not going to play for Colorado with the lacerated liver that he suffered against Colorado State. Now, Chris, this number did tick up a little bit earlier in the day, but came right back down to 21 after it popped to 22 and 21.5.
It's those professional players both ways. We know the public's on Colorado. We knew that on Monday.
The public's going to be on them all year long.
We knew that on Monday when we made the prices. But I got to tell you, my numbers come to 20. Okay. And again, you're going to jump all, beat down the doors and take at one point the best of it. I'm not. But I think, listen, Deion Sanders, he's not really my kind of guy. There's not a humble bone in his body, but I got to say a couple things. Number one, he's a very good coach. There's no question about it. He's a very good coach. What he said about the Colorado State kid, I think showed a lot of class. I really give him kudos for that because it would have been easier to jump on this kid. I mean, he hurt their best player, and the kid's going to be out for a while. It was definitely a dirty hit, and Deion stuck up for him not for the hit, but for him as a person. So good on him. But the other side of it, they're missing that guy this week.
Both ways.
That's pretty. Yeah, right. A guy that plays 100 snaps. That's a lot.
Their best skill position player, and they're missing their best secondary.
Yeah. Exactly. So I mean, I didn't take the injury into account, and when I made the number 20. But I think now when you look at it, that, probably the number should be maybe 23, something like that. How much does that kid mean? Like I said, what was he playing? Like 100 snaps a game. He was really an important guy. And probably an emotional guy too, but sometimes that first game after the key injury, the team really responds. I think like I said, he's done a fantastic job as a coach. He's really got these kids playing hard, and like I said, a lot of his personality kind of rubs me the wrong way. But the thing is, these kids play hard for him. They really do. And if you signed up to play for him, he's your kind of guy. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter about me. I'm just making prices. These guys are out there playing. So I think this is going to be a really, really good game.
You watch this game, Chris said it on the public. They're going to bet. Not only going to bet Colorado, they're going to bet Colorado on the money line. I mean, that's like they're taking them on just to win a game out, and that's a belief. Is it a tall order? First conference game. This now we'll find out even more. Right when you think about it, let's give them credit for coming back the way they did last week. I did see the interview about. Don't condemn the young man. And look, you know what, Deion Sanders, you feel what you want, but he is not. I think he tells it like it is. And in this day and age, telling it like it is, sometimes it's not what people want to hear, but he's got conviction about it. So he knows he's not running a popularity contest. But this one here, as high as 22, to Chris's point, even though it's down to 21 right now, I think you may see money come in on the favorite, but I believe that the public, the backers of Colorado, will continue to come in on the money line outright.
I think you're probably right. So far that's been the case, but I will tell you, both moves. I try not to move on the public unless it's totally overpowering. That hasn't been the case this week. These were sharp
on the point spread.
On the point spread. These were sharp players. That one laid me the 21. I went to 22 out of respect for the guy who bet me. But then somebody else came back, another sharp guy, and took the 22. And I just want to say real quick, because a lot of guys ask me, who's the wise guys on? What's the number? What number? What are we talking about? I mean, there's different. I would say, there's no wise guy union. You know what I mean? There's different wise guys that like different sides. They all have a lot of money, and whatever the number indicates for them, then they play it.
21 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon laying it against Colorado. This is a 12:30 local time in Eugene. I'm looking forward to it. I want absolutely no part of this.
In game? Maybe.
Mm-hmm. I don't even know what that would take, because if Oregon comes out and it's clear that Oregon is better, that number is going to balloon to a point where I'm not comfortable. And if Colorado shows that they're up for the moment, even without Hunter, that's
I think you got
too far the other way.
I think you got to watch the trenches, because right now I think Colorado has very good skill position players. I think, and I'm not a scout, I'm just knowing what people tell me. I think from what I hear, they're weak in the trenches, where this is one of the Oregon teams that has built up over the years. For a long time, that was a knock. They weren't strong enough in the trenches, but supposedly they are now. And I think I would watch that if you're betting in game.
It's more of an SEC build with Dan Lanning there, who, of course, was at Georgia for all those years.
Yeah.
So
model.
This is a more physical Oregon team than we are accustomed to.
If they're beating up Colorado at the line of scrimmage, then Oregon's going to probably be the right side.
Yeah, I think this is just in my perspective. Colorado matches up better with USC than they do Oregon.
USC can't tackle anybody.
No, that's why Colorado matches up better with them.
Exactly.
Because Colorado moved the ball against USC.
Yeah.
That we'll have that game next week, Chris.
Yes.
There may not be a total high enough for that one with USC and Colorado. We're going to take a quick break, guys. When we get back, more in college football, and may have Jimmy in studio with some big tickets that have been taken this week. That's coming up next. Sports by the Book here at the South Point Studio. Welcome back in. It's Sports by the Book here at the South Point Studio. I'm Jeff Parles. Chris Andrews on the far side of the deck. Vinny Magliulo to Chris's left. And now, Jimmy Vaccaro. Jimmy, how you doing?
I'm hot. I don't want to hear nothing from you, till I say this, because I think you're going to be on my side. If I hear one more time from these knuckleheads that have these radio and TV shows, if I hear one more time, this is a must-win for the team. Are you sick and tired of hearing that after all these years? What do they mean, must-win?
Yep. They mean must cover.
Oh, must cover?
That's what they mean.
No, they're
That's what
looking
they really
at you.
mean.
Well, Tommy, I think this is a must-win. No, we're going to go out there and try to lose, you moron. I mean, we're just going to go out there and do.
Yeah, I love when we didn't come here to lose. Oh, okay. Well, let's mark him off the guys that went to the trip to lose.
Number.
I'll admit it. I'm guilty of saying that plenty of times throughout my terrestrial radio
Cut
career.
his microphone down.
No, I'm guilty of that old cliche for sure, Jimmy. But in theory, it is ridiculous to say.
Yeah, it's stupid.
It is very ridiculous.
Doesn't mean anything. You fight for your life no matter what side of the building you're on, whether you're with us. Remember, you guys are the pitchers, we're the catchers. That's the way it goes.
As usual, Jimmy, you will change broadcasting.
Yes.
You won't hear it anymore.
Now, here's the kind of guys we love to see. All
yes.
right?
A whole pile of
glasses
tickets.
on.
Well, he's putting on his glasses. We know we're serious now, yeah.
I think there's 9 or 10 bets here for $10,000.
Oh,
okay, I'll read them to you. Okay, Duke minus 21 for 10. Panthers, I think, plus 6.5. I think he bet him twice for 20. Rams plus the 3 for 10. Titans plus 3.5 for 10. Pittsburgh Steelers, Chris, plus 3.
You have to know who that guy is.
What's that?
I'm sure you know who that guy is.
Okay.
guys.
Texans plus 8.5. The game was 9.5 here, so he took 8.5. So that shows you one thing: he's not a super smart guy, because he ain't taking the 8-1 if it was 9-1.
Yeah.
So we know it doesn't mean he's not going to win, but you'd like to have this guy every week if he's going to bet you 10 games. Panthers plus 6 for the 10. Couple more. Temple plus 24 for 10. Oregon minus 21. I don't know. That looks too big for a Dion's team, right? I mean,
I don't know. Big injury for Colorado.
I don't know. All right, we'll see. And the last game here is UAB plus the 42 for 10.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting at is and you two can jump in also. You can too, but you don't know what we're talking about with this. When we have all of these games, I think there's 10 of them. So guy bet whatever, $100,000. All right. I would rather, and you can ask these two gentlemen, have this guy come in every week and bet 10 games for $10,000 as opposed to betting one game for $100,000. I mean, you hear, yeah, we take the big bets. Well, the trick is to get a lot of money in a favorable position where you juice it out. So, I mean, anytime a guy wanted to do this, Chris couldn't wait to say, go ahead, because obviously this is a big deal. And the joints that really obviously know better, and it shows at the end of the year by moving things, maybe 2 or 3% to your edge, but you do it all year long, it helps your bottom line. The people who understand the racket know that. The newbies to some degree says, well, but we took 100,000 on, Carolina. Well, big deal. If that was the only bet you've taken that had any volume behind it. So it's something that we have learned over the year, and something that, no matter how long you've done, no matter how much we've done in this racket, there's always room for expanding to think of another way to do things. And the people who survived this, and I'm looking at these two guys, if you didn't survive, your ass would be on the street. But let me tell you out there, this show is going to be different. And there's no doubt when I'm with you guys and we're talking about these things, I guarantee you nobody was on and said, look, this helps us no matter what. From holding your 4.5%, now with the 10 bets, you probably, what's the pencil out to? Like 6%, something like that? You're getting something.
I'll settle for 4.5.
Okay.
I really will. But I want to tell you something, and we've only been on the air a couple weeks, but there's a lot of things we're doing here at South Point, and we have time to hit on some. We don't have time to hit on all of them. So far, the month of September, handle's up 20%. We weren't exactly struggling last September either, so it's 20% increase over a pretty strong number. So I've said this from the beginning. Guys were worried about PAPSA and all that other stuff. I always said it's going to grow the market. It's gonna, and you could just see, the market has grown, and we're just getting our piece of it. And listen, that's all we can ask for, really. But we're getting it.
Yeah.
Great points, guys. I mean, you think about what PASPA, when PASPA, before PASPA was overturned, I mean, Nevada's handle was right in about the $5 billion range. Well, it's up $8 billion and growing. I mean, we're gonna approach $10 billion. These are statewide handle numbers. Well, of course, it pales.
Geez, I wish it was just South Point.
I know.
Go ahead.
We'll get there. But when you compare that to other areas, people are out there saying, well, what about New York, New Jersey? Well, yeah, it's great. You got 40, 50 million people that live in that condensed an area, so they should be doing those numbers, and that's great for them. But what it's done too is create more customers. And to Jimmy's point about having these tickets spread out, you're not living and dying as an operator out there, and there's a lot of new operators out there. You're not living and dying with one decision. You can say, well, what happens with the Super Bowl? The Super Bowl is one game, but there's 400 or 500 different ways to bet it and come and to get off it and things like that. So it's not quite the same. Jimmy's point about these 10 tickets compared to one $100,000 ticket. Well, that's your day. You may win it, you may lose it, but your day comes down to one ticket. As an operator, you don't want your day necessarily to come down to one ticket. As a bettor, you can spread it out differently. It's a different set of circumstances. So good points, guys.
Well, and the other thing that you get misled to some degree is it's so much different than it once was. As I've been quoting, we want to talk about what was, we want to talk what's happening now, we want to talk about what the hell's going to happen. Remember, people out there, the way that we do things as far as future betting. Now with the Super Bowl, that has really helped in the last 15 years because, remember, we have 200 tickets on the Super Bowl with the props there, as opposed to just a one straight bet on who's ever in the game. But obviously, if done correctly, and everybody, especially like Chris now with the props, just if it falls normal, what are we holding on? 15 to 18% just on the props, if done correct.
It's different every year.
It is different.
We've had great years. We've had not so great years, but overall we've done really well. Certainly since I've been here, really well.
But there is a lot of different things to do to create. I mean, if you do something even like a future book or anything like that, if you hold anything that's valid, whatever, that it's going to help your bottom line and then you have to watch what it is. But like I said, when you have people who understand it, it's so different because you'll hear, oh, yeah, you don't know what they did down here, whatever. Well, first of all, we could care less what they do down there. They should care less about what we do up here. But it is a different ball game, and you need people who understand the racket behind the counter. If you don't, doesn't mean you can't win, but I'm saying, you're not going to win what you should win in the long run.
Jimmy, I want to pick up on a point you made about the Seahawk ticket, the Panthers. The gentleman that bet the Panthers, I think he bet it. You said he took 5.5, I think, right?
Mhm.
And this is a game that opened 5. That game got as high as 6.5, Chris.
Yeah.
Now, that was Bryce Young playing for the Panthers. So the Seahawks open at 5. They get as high as 6.5. Now he's out of the game. The gentleman did not take 6.5. He took 5. It's Andy Dalton. So there's a belief.
He did take the 6.5.
The
Texans one was the one that was the lesser.
Well,
hang on. I got one. I marked these down here.
Yeah.
I got a guy taking 6. He took 6.5.
Okay.
But he didn't take
6.5.
So
He didn't take the top number.
Right.
But the thing about it is he also believes that Andy Dalton is better than Bryce Young.
I said it right away.
They laid this game. They bet against Bryce Young.
Yeah.
But now it's not a bet as much on Carolina. It's a bet on Andy Dalton and a veteran.
Listen, I don't know what's going to happen in their careers, but I said it last year. A lot of guys said I was nuts. I would take C.J. Stroud over Young. He's just bigger. The little guys. They're going to have the best highlight reels of the year. Scrambling, boom, great arm, all that other stuff. I like a bigger quarterback. And I know they protect quarterbacks like crazy now. I know that. But you still got to look over the line, and you're going to get a couple hits over the course of the year. And I don't know if it's going to impact you in today's game or today's season or your career overall. Look at Andrew Luck, big, strong kid. Look at Cam Newton. Was there a bigger, stronger quarterback than him?
No.
He got hit too many times. And in this league where they're protecting quarterbacks, but you can't protect them totally. And these guys are going to get hit.
It's going to be interesting in the next few years because what you hear too much because there's 32 teams. Then I hear it's like, well, he's in the top 15 of quarterbacks. He's not. There's no top 15. There's usually just 2 or 3 who really, really make the line move. From with and obviously with them or with the kid from the Jets, it's we knew from the game was 6, and then he got hurt for next game. Then it was Pick'em, so he's like a 6-point differential. Yeah. And I don't think they go from 1 to 15. I have always said there's been 5. Then the rest are this guy's good. He didn't play this well. His offensive line is not that good, so don't blame it all on him. They protect themselves in too many different ways.
Well, once again, if you go. And this is a little simplistic. It's very simplistic. It's like a bell-shaped curve. Mm-hmm. On the one, let's say this end is the good quarterback. There's a couple there. Mm-hmm. Most of the guys are in the middle. There's a couple guys that are terrible. Mm-hmm. A couple guys that are terrible. They ain't going to be around long. So they don't that end of the curve doesn't last long. But to Jimmy's point, the one at the one end of the curve is very small. But they're really, really impactful. And I think we said it on this show when Rodgers went out, there wasn't a big enough adjustment. It was like 5 or 6 points. It should have been at least 7 or 8, at least.
Right. He has the most impact of any player in recent years, and it's still there, right? He's the most impactful player to the number.
Yeah, listen, if Peyton Manning was his backup, it wouldn't be that impactful. But he had his Zach White.
Even today's Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning with a bad neck would be better than Zach White.
Chris, we've talked about this a little bit. It's Rodgers, as Vinny said, the most influential number. We're seeing it this week with Joe Burrow.
You bet.
Burrow, same thing.
Mahomes, if he were to miss time, even though Kansas City withstood his injury in the Super Bowl season. And then Josh Allen, basically. Yeah. There were not many other guys on that side of the curve.
Well, Henne, was Mahomes' backup for a long time.
More,
He was a very good backup quarterback. Now, he didn't see the field that often, but that kid could play. He wasn't bad.
Just made an overture to him this week.
Did they really?
Yes, they did.
Yes,
well,
they did.
And he declined.
I'd be overturing a lot, I got to tell you.
He did not return the overture. So,
all right, one more from my 2 friends here. Who was the only person you can ever remember that the line moved on a defensive player, whether he played or not?
Lawrence Taylor.
Maybe up to 3 points. I remember that a long time ago.
Yeah, that might be. But I'll tell you right now, there's 2 players in the NFL right now that I would move the points on their injury. Micah Parsons, T.J. Watt. I mean,
I would have had
you look at what those 2 guys do for their team, and it's influential enough to move the number.
Well, both we should tell them people, if we move the line on the defensive player, they should take it from us. They know what the hell they're doing. This guy's great, And
true.
Well, TJ signed a big contract last year. Yeah. I have a feeling Micah's going to sign one at the end of this year. So I think those guys know. TJ, God bless him. I know in the last day before season started, they were still negotiating. Finally, TJ said, just sign the contract. It's plenty of money. I'm playing for the Steelers. So obviously, he has a place in my heart. So,
he got it on.
They have a game this Sunday, Jimmy,
when
in case you didn't know.
Drinking on the Steeler game 3 days ago, like my cousins.
We need them right now.
I've been lobbying for those tickets since the end of last season. Let me tell you.
Now let's remember, right?
Wow.
Those 3-point dogs.
That's a big deal right now for Pittsburgh. It really is a huge deal. Sure. Matter of fact, I was telling
it's
Chris
a must
earlier,
win, Jim. Oh, no.
I was driving to work and what's his name had a show. It was on the radio. Anyway, he said, "Yeah, and don't forget about this Steeler game. They're playing the Raiders. They're in Las Vegas." And he said there'll be a lot of Western Pennsylvania people drinking when this game was going on.
Rich Eisen said.
Rich Eisen, Rich Eisen said it. Wow. What else? Like we've had a pretty good start so far.
Let's go through some of the pro games.
Let's go take a stick around.
Yeah,
please.
stick around if you want, Jimmy.
Yeah. Chris, I do want to ask you one last college game before we
go
move
ahead,
on. Ohio State, Notre Dame.
Are they playing too?
They're playing too.
Okay.
Ohio State's a 3-point favorite.
Yeah.
55.5 the total.
We have not moved that point spread. I'm not sure about the total. Well, we have not moved that point spread. My numbers came to 1, Ohio State. Like I've been saying all year, I think they're down a little bit. Of course, as I said, 128 teams in the country would love to have Ohio State's problems. Nonetheless, they are down a little bit. And I think Notre Dame, as I said, I did a lot of work in the offseason trying to judge home field advantage. There's a big difference between Ohio State at home and Ohio State on the road. And I would say the same with Notre Dame. I think on paper, probably Ohio State's a little bit better. But playing in Notre Dame, boy, there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens over the years. We talk about players improving. I think coaches improve too. And this Notre Dame coach, from where he started last year, his baptism under fire was at the Horseshoe. That's tough for anybody, let me tell you.
Sure.
But he's gotten better and better. I think that he's now turned into a very, very good coach. And I like plus the 3. I think Notre Dame. I think that's like I said, I made it 1, but 3 would be a take for me if I was out there betting.
Notre Dame with the big advantage at quarterback. But he's going to see the best defense that he's seen so far this year too. So it's going to be a terrific game, and it's positioned beautifully.
Perfect
at 4:30. It'll be this will be the handle game of the day.
I've already bet Notre Dame. Took the 3.5 earlier.
Okay,
took some 3 as well. I'm with Chris. Crazy things happen in South Bend. Crazy things can happen.
Sure do.
Sure.
I ran this by Chris earlier today because it hit me, but then he told me a little bit more about it. 2 monster franchises, obviously. They've only played 6 times in their whole career. That's unbelievable.
Yeah. I looked. They played last year. They played in '93.
Wow.
I forgot about that game.
But a Fiesta Bowl recently too.
Well, I'm not talking about bowl. But they played in '93. But I remember reading somewhere where they had a beef. This is like 50 years ago, and the administration for the 2 schools had a beef, and that's when Notre Dame went out and started playing Michigan every year. To stick it to Ohio State.
That's a bus ride away from each school.
Well, I mean, listen, all 3 of those teams should be playing every year. I mean, look at those franchises. Yeah, they should be. They absolutely should be.
Chris, where do you want to start in the NFL?
Let's start with game 1, Vikings and Chargers.
Oh, yes, the anything is possible bowl.
One of these teams is going to be 0-3.
Yeah. Minnesota opened a home dog. Now they're favored.
Again, I just wrote down the wise guy, and I got my sheets full of them. But we had a sharp guy bet us on Minnesota to pick them. But I hate to say what I think is the right side here. I don't know because to me this looks like a pick. And Jeff, you said it. Anything can happen in this game. One of these teams is going to be 0-3.
And for the Chargers, I mean, look, if the Chargers lose this game, I don't know how Staley makes it past the bye week, and they have an early bye.
Yeah.
For the Vikings, Kirk Cousins' contract is done at the end of the year. There have to be legitimate discussions about trading Cousins before the weekend.
Absolutely. Because if they don't, they're not going to sign him. But if they have a chance to get. What are they going to get? Maybe a 3rd-round draft choice, something like that. I mean, it depends on
New York. That's pretty.
I was going to say it depends on how desperate teams are. But if they can get something for him, and they're 0-3. Listen, you're 0-3.
You're done.
Not so much in the NFC because the NFC I think is wide open. But if you're 0-3, chances aren't good. I mean, I know if I was Minnesota, I'd be looking to make a move.
I mean, probably no Eckler again.
He is out.
I mean, so multiple defensive injuries for the Chargers here, and I think that's probably why they went from a 1-point favorite to a 1-point dog. And we talked about it, right? These two teams finding ways to lose game. With the Vikings a year ago, they win all these close one-score games to win them. The average law of averages has caught up with them, and I think that's and I think people are betting against them that way.
Yes.
Although they're betting on them right now, and I think that'll probably continue.
One of those little things that obviously we all have when we read when the lines come out for the next week, whatever. You look at it, and then most of the time, what I first do, and I've done this for quite a while, is just like sitting at home or whatever. And I've always said there's 4 teams that overachieve for the year, 4 teams that underachieve for the year, and the rest are -3.
And to one more thing, there's always somebody comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
We might be in week 4 or 5, and look at the Bengals a couple of years ago.
Sure.
I mean, they kind of came out of nowhere. And
the Lions
caught fire.
Year.
Yeah, Lions last year.
To a horrible start. I mean, even for this year, it's early. Washington, no one expected them to be 2-0.
Somebody will come out of nowhere in this NFL.
They really are. Before we get there, but isn't you watch? I watched last night. Just not that I really have bad feelings against any team, whatever. Like I was actually trying to root for the Giants. I was feeling bad for the quarterback. Yeah. It was so bad.
Well, you're a house man, Jimmy.
I mean, this poor kid throwing over their head, under their whatever, just like.
Well, one more thing, about that game, Brock Purdy, and I was watching the game, following on Twitter. Boy, Purdy looks bad today. Purdy looks bad. Purdy wound up with 310 yards. They went in a cakewalk. I mean, give me that. If only Kenny Pickett could look that bad on Sunday, I'll be very happy.
I'm happy you brought that up because it just speaks to how good of a coach Kyle Shanahan.
He is, absolutely.
Where Purdy did not have his A game last.
No,
and like you said, like the numbers, if you didn't watch any of the game, you look at the numbers like, wow, Purdy had a really nice night.
By the way, Shanahan and Lynch got contracts extended today.
As they should. Those guys have
built
a monster out there.
They're in sync, clearly.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Chris, I want to go to Miami next because the Broncos are 0-2, seemingly at the point now where the market is lowest on them. Miami is 2-0. 2 close wins, but they're 2-0. Sure. The offense has looked very impressive. Is this just one of these games where, again, it's Miami's home opener as well? Teams struggle usually in that South Florida humidity early in the season. But it's one of those where the take has been on Denver so far.
Definitely. Yeah, I got it in my notes. The Wise guys have took +7.
Yeah.
Interesting note here, and I didn't realize this, and I bet you this surprises you. Denver leads the league in points per possession. They haven't had that many.
They haven't had many possessions.
They haven't had many possessions.
Yeah.
So that I thought that's an interesting thing to look at here, and I guarantee whoever decided to take the +7, I thought 7 was a good number, but that may be one of the handicaps on how they looked at this game. I was very surprised to read that.
Dolphins home opener, better defensively against, but I don't believe that. New England's a very good offensive team. Let's face it. I mean, you're talking about the changing of the guard in the division. I mean, clearly, it's on full display. It was certainly last week, even though it's early in the season. I think the play on the 7 is a play on the number. This is pros they bet numbers. They don't bet teams. Now you figure Denver, they should be better. I think I have to tell you, we mentioned a few minutes ago, Shanahan and Lynch, how much in sync they are. I don't think there's a lot of in sync in Denver.
Not yet.
Particularly with the head
Not
coach
yet.
and the quarterback, right? So Russell Wilson, Sean Payton, I think it's almost ultimatum. There's some underlying ultimatums being given by the coach, and I don't see the fire in Russell Wilson that we did see when he was not the last couple of years, but prior to that up in Seattle. But I don't think this is going to be a year where we're not going to be short on Dolphins money. There'll be Dolphins money that comes at some point this weekend, particularly in money line parlays and teasers by the folks sitting behind us.
You hate to say like a receiver is going to be that much of a big difference, but this kid from Miami, now the other
Tyreek
kid,
Hill.
I mean, they may they could scare everybody. I mean, because no one can watch that little guy.
No.
That's amazing.
You can't stay with them.
You can't stay with them. So, I mean, that might be just the one that they need to put them.
It's like when we were kids playing ball in the street. You go long.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy can't get a statement. If I can get it to you, you're going to score.
And don't run into the Buick parked on the side.
In your case, it was a Studebaker, but okay.
You're right. I did run my ass into the back of a license plate once. Took me to Doc
steel,
Pogues.
too.
Doc Pogues, what happened? I said,
no composition material.
Whatever.
All right, one last game before we go
sure?
here today.
Good.
Yeah, one last one. I got to bring it up. Sunday night, home opener for the Raiders. Your Steelers, as the Polo says, Chris. You guys are the only 3 in the market. And Vinny and I were talking about this yesterday. I'm a little surprised the 3 is still standing up right now.
Yeah.
Well, you don't know what I have at the other side, on the other side.
It's been all home team.
Yeah, I mean, I opened this. Well, we opened Sunday night.
Right.
Before, a lot of things. But we opened the Steelers a 1.5-point favorite. Now, I think the next day we reopened it at pick, or maybe even the Raiders won. It's been a flood of Raider money. And I don't mean from just these people out here. I mean big money. Guys, that's their handicap. And, at some point, can you even blame them? I mean, the Steelers got 2 defensive touchdowns last week. Otherwise, that Matt Canada, their offensive coordinator, is under tremendous pressure. It's almost better that they're on the road here. Listen, I still think, and I'm looking at my numbers, I still think the Raiders should be a slight favorite, probably like 1.5, something like that. 3 is I mean, listen, if 3 is the predominant number, it's either a take or a pass. But right now, we are the only 3. And I know guys are always afraid of 3. Bookmaker, I always say, if it can't land 3, it's like you never took the bet. It's the half point that kills you, not the 3. So right now, I'm still looking for some more +3 before I move it back down to 2.5. But you can see all the 2.5s in the market all have juice attached to it. So if we got a 2.5, we do everything at 11-10 here at the South Point. I had this discussion with Frank Totti a week ago. He's the one that pushes it, and he didn't have to push me too far. When I was at Cal Neve all those years, I did the exact same thing. Everything at 11-10, and sometimes it bites you. But he understands that, and he says that's the way he wants to do it. And like I said, I agree with him 100%. Mm-hmm. So if we go to 2.5, we're going to be only 2.5 flat in the market. They're going to probably lay me right back up. So I want to get some +3 in my pocket before I move it.
Raiders making their home debut for the season, right? This is their home opener,
50-50 crowd.
And I will tell you now, there'll be plenty of black and gold in the stands,
including
some people sitting close to me right now.
Hello, Vinny.
Sunday night for that one.
Great game.
You know what?
Great action.
There'll be a lot of action
in
that game, to say the very least. I don't know how good of a football game it will be, but I think everyone will be sweating it out the whole way.
You're probably right. I think
let's
you're
just
right.
go with that. I think it's going to be tight. I'm just not certain of which way that game is going to go. All right, that's all the time we have. This has been Sports by the Book here at the South Point studio. For Chris Andrews, Vinny Magliulo, Jimmy Vaccaro. Vinny and I are back tomorrow. Alex White will be with us tomorrow, the whole show, starting at 8 in the morning, Pacific time, 11 a.m. If you happen to be watching us from the East Coast, it'll be a lot of fun. College football day to preview. Yep. We'll be back tomorrow, 8 in the morning, here at the South Point studio. This has been Sports by the Book.